What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and this is one of my absolute favorite video series that we do on this channel. And this data set, there's just so many golden nuggets that we can pull out of it. Now, this is something that we have been doing ever since the channel came out. So for 3 years, every single month, we have been looking at this piece of information. And the important thing about that is think about everything that has happened over the last 3 years of the hobby. We've gone through highs, we've gone through lows, like we've seen sets get hot, we've seen things cool off. Like it has been incredible. It's been a wild ride over the last 3 years. But what that allows us to do is it allows us to identify patterns and trends, and it allows us to say, hey, listen, the last time the market was doing X, we saw Y. And when you can do those types of things, that allows us to take those types of lessons from the past, apply them to the present, to give us some idea of what might happen in the future. Obviously, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But again, when you can start to correlate different ways of market moving, like right now, the market's starting to get a little soft. And if you're somebody like me, you get excited about that. This is when I use it to really dig into the data and to find some really awesome cards or sealed product that I think, because the prices are going down right now, they give us an even higher opportunity for returns far into the future. So this is the stuff that I really love. Now, specifically what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at the exact grading volume for the month of November at PSA. And even if you're not a grading person, even if you prefer to keep your cards in a binder and flip through them, like it doesn't matter. This information is such a great representation of what's happening at the hobby at a macro level. Because let's be honest, the reason most people, most of these cards, not all of them, me and my family grade cards for fun all the time, but most of the cards that are going through PSA have some type of financial tie to them. They either want the card graded because it's going to be worth more after the grade is received, or they want to flip it really quickly, or they want to buy it, get it graded, and then hold it for the long term because they think the price of a PSA is going to outpace the raw card. So when we look at these sets and cards that are getting graded, it's really impactful and it's very, very important because, again, it's not just what you and I are doing, but it's what is the whole hobby doing? Because when we talk about this, what drives the price of a Pokemon card? And we've talked about this multiple times. I'm sure I'll bring it up later in the video, but what drives the price of the Pokemon is you and me and our wallets. Like that is it. Supply and demand is purely the only driver of the prices associated to these Pokemon cards. So this video is going to be a ton of fun. There's a ton of learnings. We're going to talk about what's in the data, what's not in the data. We're going to correlate it to some really awesome sets from the past. But most importantly, I hope you find it insightful. I hope you find it fun. And if you do and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. As I said, we've been doing this for a long time. There's a ton of work that goes into this. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out. Lets me know you appreciate all the work that I put into it. So the very first one that I want us to talk about, the very first set of information is these are the most graded sets at PSA for the month of November. And as you can see, I have 5 sets highlighted with purple boxes around them because when I see something like this gets me really, really excited. Now, we're going to see a stark contrast versus the most graded sets here versus when I flip to the most graded singles cards here in just a minute. But this is what we need to start off with because look, Destined Rivals coming in at number 2 is phenomenal. Like the fact that this set has been out, I don't know, 6 or 7 months at this point, the fact that it is still up here at the very, very top is one of the most graded sets is really encouraging. That's what I like to see. Like, it's no secret. We've talked about this on the channel, and I'm sure everybody feels the exact same way that out of all of the regular sets, not specialty sets, but all the regular sets in Scarlet and Violet, Destined Rivals is it. Like hard stop, no questions asked. Even though I'm a huge Surging Sparks fan, like Destined Rival is going to be the big regular set from the Scarlet and Violet era. And you can see that the grading volume is correlating with that. Lots of people are getting the cards graded because lots of people think in the long run, those cards are going to appreciate in value. So really excited to see this up here. And again, it really helps galvanize that thought process. But what is equally exciting is if you go down to number 4, 151 is still on the list. Now, that talks about everything that I referenced earlier. What drives Pokemon cards? Supply and demand. And obviously, over 2 years after the set has been released, it is still the number 4 most graded set at PSA. It doesn't get more in demand than that. Now, you might say, well, if it's this much graded, then obviously the supply is going to be huge. But you got to think about this too. 151 is an incredibly deep set. Like obviously it's the original 151 Pokemon. So it's not just 1 or 2 cards that are getting graded. Like think about Phantasmal Flames. It's a top heavy Charizard set. Like most of the cards that are going to be graded from that are going to be those Charizards. But 151, it's not just the Charizard at the very top, right? You got the Blastoise, you got the Venusaur, you got the Alakazam, you got the Zapdos, you got that Pikachu card in there, the Charmander. Like I could go on and on and on. So yes, the overall grading volume volume is really, really high. But I do think that also because the gem rates are relatively low, like out of all the Scarlet and Violet era sets, the gem rates in Scarlet and Violet was one of the absolutely lowest. So you're gonna have a lot of cards that are graded. It's gonna be peanut butter spread across a bunch of awesome cards that are in that set. Gem rates are gonna be low, which will keep the PSA 10 population somewhat approachable versus going up into the 30, 40,000 range, or like some of the crazy numbers that we've seen in the past. So the thing that I take away from this is the demand. And obviously, big fan of 151, have been since it was announced, and the market obviously follows the same suit. The other thing that I like here is the Mega Evolution set being on here this early. Everything that I said about Destined Rivals, I feel the exact same way about Mega Evolution. Now, admittedly, I slept a little bit on Mega Evolution, but when you think about it, that set is so incredibly deep. It's not like Phantasmal Flames, which I just referenced, where there's going to be a couple big cards at the top that everybody's chasing. But outside of that, not that the cards aren't good, but it just doesn't have the same level of oomph all the way throughout the course of the set. But when you think about Mega Evolution, there are just some stunning cards in that set. I mean, there's 5 or 6 cards in that set that I think in the long run have the opportunity to be really high value cards. And when we see this set popping this early on here in the most graded sets list, it just goes to show you that there's a lot of people out there who feel the same way. There's a lot of different cards from Mega Evolution that are being graded. There's a lot of throughput at PSA for that set. Like, I think that is a very, very strong indication, especially now that booster boxes have really been coming down in price. It's crazy for me to say this out loud, that $220 for a booster box versus an MSRP of $164 is down in price, but it's just the world that we live in. But it is coming down in price. So maybe, Mega Evolution booster boxes are starting to get to a point where the market is showing long-term demand, long-term upside, but with the booster boxes coming down, maybe it's an opportunity to take a look at some of them. And then you have Crown Zenith. Oh my gosh, I love Crown Zenith. If you were fortunate enough to be collecting when Crown Zenith came out, it was literally like Christmas Day every time you opened Crown Zenith. The set was so deep. The artwork was so amazing. Pull rates were great, and just, I don't know, I ripped so much Crown Zenith with my kids because it was just so much flipping fun. And when I think about Crown Zenith, I think of Ascended Heroes. Now, I think Ascended Heroes is going to be better, but again, Ascended Heroes is going to be a very big set. Obviously, we have seen a lot of the biggest names are going to be included in there. We've seen a lot of awesome artwork. And again, I think Ascended Heroes is going to be on a next level. But look at what Crown Zenith has done this far after. I mean, this is the last Sword and Shield set that ever came out, and it is still in the top 10 most graded sets at PSA. It is wild to think about how that set has really stood the test of time. Now, it had a delayed product release, which we're going to see the same thing with Ascended Heroes. So there's a little bit of similarities in the fact that products trickle in over a long period of time. But again, Crown Zenith is a phenomenal set. Love to see it on here. And I am starting to draw some correlations to the upcoming Ascended Heroes set. And then the final one, and I'm so glad this one was last because we're going to use this one to tie into the singles cards list. That's Prismatic Evolutions. Prismatic Evolutions is a stunner of a set, and that set has been featured here in the most graded list multiple times ever since it came out, which is no surprise. As we all know, Prismatic Evolutions is obviously a very, very popular set, and I think Prismatic Evolutions, as far as I'm concerned, is probably going to be one of the, if not the best sets overall from the entire Scarlet and Violet era. I think you got Destined Rivals, you got 151, you got Prismatic Evolutions, and I think you got everybody else fighting for that 4, 5, 6 spot. But before we go more into that, I think it's important for us to switch over to the most graded singles cards, because this is where I draw that comparison. And again, this is where I can pull from that repository of doing this video for 3 years and just understanding and remembering how different sets and different singles cards have worked in the past, because I did a video for Prismatic Evolutions in the beginning, where it was premature, but I did compare it to Evolving Skies. That was an easy comparison, right? Obviously, we knew the Umbreon was going to be the #1 card, just like in Evolving Skies. We knew it was going to be, an evolution heavy set, which was easy to know. We knew it. The poster image came out much earlier than anybody anticipated, so we knew what was going to be in it. But more and more, I'm starting to feel that comparison is valid. So then pull rates came out. And obviously, as we know, the pull rates in Evolving Cries was absolutely abysmal, right? But then Prismatic Evolutions had really bad pull rates. Matter of fact, out of all of the regular Scarlet and Violet era sets, including specialty ones, Prismatic Evolutions had one of the worst pull rates. So you have that correlation, right? They're both driven by Umbreon, wildly popular Pokemon. Both of them have some of the worst gem rates from their entire series. So a lot of this is starting to correlate. But then this is another thing which really hits home for me. So we have never seen a single card from Prismatic Evolution featured on this PSA most graded card list. Guess what other set we never saw a single card featured on the PSA most graded card set list? it was evolving skies. We never saw a Moonbryon make it here. We never saw the Sylveon. We never saw the Ray card. Like, none of them ever had enough throughput at PSA to make it onto this list. But we saw evolving skies featured on the most graded sets list multiple times because the set was so phenomenal, because it was so deep, because those alt arts hit super hard. Like, everybody was grading evolving skies, but there was no one singular card, because of the pull rates being as bad as they were, that had enough volume to make it onto this list. And it's the exact same thing. We've never seen a Prismatic Evolution card make it onto this list. And if you want to go even further into why I think Prismatic Evolutions has the opportunity to match Evolving Skies or maybe even beat it, a gem rate on Evolving Skies for those VMAX alt arts, because of the way the borders were, they were almost non-existent, right? It was very easy to get the centering on the nose. Those PSA 10 gem rates were like 68, 70% for some of those cards. When you look at Prismatic Evolutions, it's in the 30s. So you have this terrible gem rate, and you have this terrible pull rate, and you have these incredible cards with big name Pokemon on it. Like, it is a very, very powerful set of information that we're starting to weave together for the upside of Prismatic Evolutions in the long run. Now, we'll talk about what we do see on here, which is interesting. We've seen this for the last couple months. So 3 months ago, the only cards that were on here, not the only cards, but primarily we saw Japanese Pokemon cards on here, right? Then 2 months ago, there was only 4 English cards. Then last month, there was only 3 English cards. This month, again, there's only 3 English cards. So we're seeing a whole lot of throughput for Japanese cards here at the PSA. But what is interesting is it's primarily driven by promo cards. And we know Japan, I am so jealous. They get the best promo cards in the world over there. I wish that we had opportunity to get them all. And we go through cycles like this. So we have cycles where these promo cards just really start to flood PSA, and that's what we're seeing right here. And obviously Japan loves Pikachu. I love Pikachu, Pika Pika Papa. So we don't just see a bunch of promo cards, we also see a bunch of Pikachu promo cards on here. Now, the biggest call out to me was look at the #1 most graded card, okay? So that's the McDonald's Japanese Pikachu promo card. Do you remember the demand for that was so crazy? They were shutting down McDonald's in Japan because people were flooding in trying to get the card. But then look at that middle column. It says total graded November of 25. There were 54,000 copies of that card that was graded last month. And if you look at the #2 card, right, that's Inferno X Mega Charizard Special Art Rare. There was 8,600. So, I mean, the delta between the #1 most graded card and the #2 is absolutely massive. So promo cards have this opportunity where they get really, really hot for a period of time. The market gets flooded with PSA 10s because the gem rate in Japan is really, really high. And then they kind of subside here for a little bit. But the biggest call out for me, besides the fact that we still have no Prismatic Evolutions on here, is the fact that we're starting to see celebration cards on here. So out of the 3 English cards on this list, 2 of them are celebrations. And we have seen this time and time again. I've done so much content on this, how future sets, when we get the release, when we start to know that they're coming out, future sets can drive older cards prices. We've seen it happen a million times over, right? When the Mega Series was announced and we knew there was going to be Mega Evolution Pokemon, what happened? The XY era popped off, right? All these old Mega Evolution Pokemon started to pop off from the XY era. Same thing like Storm Emeralda. I'm just picking them off the top of my head here. Like when Storm Emeralda came out, what do we see? We saw a lot of Rayquaza cards start to pop off in price because everybody thought, oh, well, the news card's going to feature Rayquaza. Well, what's happening with celebration cards? Obviously, we're going to be in the 30th anniversary year in 2026. So I think a lot of people are going to start making big moves in the celebration segment. This is a great way to show you that even all the way back a couple months ago, people were already starting to make those moves and buy those cards. So keep that in the top of the mind as you're looking at celebration cards and thinking what might happen with this 30th anniversary set here on the horizon. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about right here is the total TCG cards graded by month at PSA. But in order to talk about November, we've got to take a step back and look at October. So if you didn't see the video in October, I'm going to tell you right now, there was 1.226 million TCG cards graded at PSA. Like, that wasn't a just small increase in grading, like it was a rocket ship, because this graph right here represents the total number of TCG cards that were graded at PSA going all the way back to January of 2022. And look at, just look at that. There's nothing even close to 1.2 million TCG cards graded in a month. Now, we all felt, rightfully so, that November was going to see a little bit of a drop off, but to be honest with you, it didn't drop as far as I thought it would. We still had over 1 million TCG cards graded at PSA in the month of November. There was 1,016,000 cards graded in the TCG space at PSA. Now, It's been interesting to watch how the TCG grading has increased, and I think there's a lot of different levers that have been pulled to make this happen, but I have that red line drawn right there because I thought this would be an interesting point for us to talk about. Is that is when GameStop started accepting PSA submissions. Now, I'm not saying GameStop is the sole driver of all of this, right? Obviously, the market's been super hot. We're seeing where new cards and new sets, instead of the prices coming down after release, they're staying flat, or even a lot of them have been going up in value. We're starting to see that supply and demand has been totally out of whack. So all of these things have led to this environment where these cards are worth a lot of money, so people are sending a lot of things through PSA. That makes sense. But it is worth noting that there has been a step function change in grading volume ever since GameStop opened their doors. I think that has opened the world of grading to a lot more people who maybe didn't want to send directly to PSA, or people who are a little on the edge about it. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there's good and bad things about GameStop, but I do think that that is something to note. Now, when you look at this right here, it will be interesting to see what happens, because I think at some point it has to happen. This is going to flatten out. And by that, I mean, we will buy stuff at MSRP again in the future. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know why, but we will hopefully get to the point where I can buy a booster box at MSRP. But when that happens, what's going to happen to the grading volume? Like when the cards start to go through the normal Pokemon pop and flop, when things start to settle and normalize just a little bit, what's going to happen to the grading volume? We're going to have to keep our fingers on the pulse of that. And listen, hey, nothing against GameStop. I love GameStop. But when you think about it, I don't know, the worldwide graveyard of businesses is filled with those who've made long-term bets on short-term trends. And obviously, I don't think Pokemon is a short-term trend. But if you look at GameStop's quarterly financial reports that they do, because they're a public company, they have to do it, man. A lot of their revenue is coming from the collectible space, which includes TCG cards and grading. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with GameStop once all of this starts to flatten out and normalize just a little bit. They're going to be fine. They're sitting on a couple billion in cash, so they can weather the storm. But again, big part of their business. Obviously, a lot of talk about how they price their Pokemon over MSRP. So how are we going to react as collectors when things start to normalize just a little bit? We'll have to wait and see. But the next one, and again, this is a really cool data set that I actually created on my own. So when I got into Pokemon, there was a couple reasons for this. First and foremost, my kids started getting into it, and anything I can do with my kids, I'm going to dive in head first. Like, that's what gives me the most joy in my life. So my kids started to get into Pokemon cards, so I started to get into it. Then I started to learn more about it, and I started to realize the global nature of Pokemon and the fact that you could, like, cross generations can enjoy it. Obviously, I'm much older than my kids, and I enjoy it just as much as they do. And just everything I started to learn and grasp and just really love about the Pokemon collecting space led me to believe that in the long run, that is going to be the dominant collectible space. Now, obviously, baseball, basketball, football, they are huge brands. They have a global nature, right? Like, the following for these brands is absolutely ravenous. So what I started to do in the beginning was I took the total number of baseball, basketball, and football cards that were graded at PSA, and I compared it to the total number of TCG cards that were graded at PSA. So you can see the orange line, which I call ball sports, is baseball, basketball, football grading volume combined. And then the blue line is TCG grading, and I graphed it how it's moved. You can see in the beginning, they were it was like a heavyweight fight, right? They were going back and forth, one for one, and then we went through a period where ball sports started to separate itself just a little bit, right? Just started to pull away. TCG was coming down a little bit, but in the year of 2025 has been the year of TCG. TCG has absolutely broken out in comparison to the grading volume at baseball, basketball, football, which again, when you think about it, it's just incredible. And these are the things that galvanize my beliefs in the long-term opportunity here of the Pokemon space. I see this, I graph it, I love it, it gets me so excited. Doesn't mean that it won't diverge again, right? Doesn't mean that ball sports won't at some point take off. Like, who knows what's going to happen, but it's very interesting to keep a finger on the pulse of this. And it's not a competition, which leads me into what I think is probably the best graph throughout the course of this video. And by it not being a competition, what I mean is we all thrive, we all win when a collectible market is strong and healthy. And by that, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's ticket stubs, it doesn't matter if it's baseball, basketball, football, it doesn't matter if it's One Piece, Lorcana, Pokemon cards, or hockey cards, or basketball card, or MMA card. Like, it doesn't matter. What you and I and everybody else who's in this space needs to be rooting for and cheering for is the fact that the collectible market as a whole continues to grow, continues to get mainstream excitement, continues to get people, I don't know, fired up about having these incredible pieces of artwork and collectibles in their portfolio, to be honest with you, as part of a diversified asset plan to hopefully give them opportunities for long-term upside. And when you look at this graph is the total number of items that were graded at PSA by month. I added the purple bar going up upwards and to the right because the trend line is just incredible. There's been some ups, there's been some downs, but at the end of the day, if you trend line this thing out, it is a smooth and beautiful growth chart. It is exactly what I look for. It makes me feel so excited to be here. It makes me even more excited about the future. And again, we all win when these collectibles are showing value on the mainstream level all the way out into people that, I don't know, maybe haven't even been into it before. So with that being said, very happy to be here, and I hope you're happy to be here too, and I hope you want to be with me long in the future. And if you do, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those things go a long way in helping my small channel out. I hope you found value in this. I hope you thought it was cool. No matter what, you have an epic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, everybody. See ya. Bye.